Good morning, everybody. This is Stephen Pugh of the Home Bible College. I'd like to bring a small lecture for the students of the Home Bible College in Year 4. And this is number 3. The Christian minister will often have very practical skills in this life, having some sort of trade or profession. Now, I don't need to tell you that Christ was a carpenter. Now, there's nothing more basic and humble than that. Now, that little word carpenter is a Greek word. It's technos, from which we get our word technology or technology college. And it refers to all of the trades, it refers to all of the crafts. So that when the word carpenter is used, we must not automatically assume that the word technos means to work with wood. It just means a craftsman. And of course, Christ could have been a woodsman. He also could have been a blacksmith. He also could have been a mason. He also could have been a potter. He also could have been a basket maker. These are all the trades that that Christ could have had. But it's very interesting that most of the time people assume that Christ was a woodworker. And that may or may not be the case. But the important thing is that he was a craftsman. He was a craftsman. And most Christian ministers will often have very practical skills in this life, some sort of trade or profession. Now, I don't need to tell you that 4 of the disciples were fishermen. That was their trade. And some of God's people were shepherds or herdsmen. In the Old Testament, in the Old Testament, many of God's leaders were shepherds. And we all know that the work of a shepherd is of the most humble origin. So Moses was a shepherd, for example, and David was a shepherd, and there's various others. The prophets of the Lord were shepherds or herdsmen. Paul was a tent maker. Now, we're not really quite sure what this word tent maker means. The word tent maker is an English word to try to describe something that is an ancient trade, and there's lots of suggestions, but I like to think that he was a person that made tents. Some of the black tents of the Bedouins were made from the very black hair of goats, and the area in and around where Paul grew up was a place full of the black sheep from where the black goats, from where the black hair was taken from and turned into these beautiful black tents. These tents were very expensive. They were also very difficult to produce. They shredded your hands when you were working on it. And so to me it's very interesting that may have been exactly the type of practical work, the trade that Paul had. Of course, all Pharisees had a trade. Some of them were tent makers, of course, and some of them had other trades. But the most important thing about the Pharisees is that they were amateurs in that sense, in that they funded themselves on their own ministry, and they always had a trade. They always also had a wife, and they always had a family. You see, these people were not the professionals like the scribes were. The scribes had a job. Their job was the writing of God's word. But the Pharisees, they always had a trade. And many of God's ministers have very practical skills. For example, I'll just go through a few. Harold St. John worked in the bank. David Livingstone worked as a doctor. Hudson Taylor was a dentist. George Muller was a philanthropist. Gladys Aylward was a parlour maid. These are very humble positions. These are very hard-working positions. And many of God's people, many of God's ministers of the Lord are people that have very practical skills like this. So there you are. I don't know what your position in life is. I don't know where your service for the Lord is funded from. but maybe the Lord calls upon you to fund your own ministry, to find a way of earning money which will pay very well indeed, and which will enable you to do the work that God has called you to do. Well, God bless you. I look forward to speaking to you more next time, and have a wonderful day. Bye for now.